Gillis. Here's what I plan to talk about, my journey, my timeline. But please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man with wealth and taste. Oh, wait a minute. That's the opening lines to the Rolling Stones, Sympathy for the Devil, released in '68. And I'm just a professor of undergraduates in psychological science at Georgia College and State University in Millersville, Georgia. I've been there since '86. So it's obvious I'm not a man of financial wealth. Taste, it's debatable since I chose to post the original Rolling Stones album cover that was rejected by Decca Records when the album was first released. I graduated from the University of Georgia in '86 and came to APA twice after that. I felt like a fish out of water. I was not at an R1. I was at an undergraduate institution. I tried to have conversations with colleagues, cohorts that had graduated. They had no interest in what I was doing, and honestly, I had very little interest in some of their trials and tribulations. I had a very small master's program that ended pretty quickly for some other reasons I won't go into, but the right reasons. I didn't know that Division II teaching of psychology existed. I probably would have found a lot of folks there, but I just was lost those first couple of years. So I took my $400 in annual travel, and I went over to the Association of Experiential Education and brought a lot of my knowledge of what was going on in group and in psychotherapy to talk to people who were doing adventure therapy, just trying to educate folks. It's kind of how I spent my time. When I became chair of psychological science at Georgia College in '05, I came back to APA, attended some Division II events, I learned about them. And then I'd been a member of 49 because I'm a group person. I went to Georgia back in the group days, as Andy can testify, although I was there before Andy. Still, it was a group place. We trained group people. I went to the social, the infamous social. I saw people that I knew. I saw Andy Horn. I'd met Leanne at an adventure therapy conference. It's like I found my tribe. And I continued to come. And one day I get this phone call from Don Forsythe asking me if I would run for the board. And I was floored to be asked. And getting involved in leadership in this division is really important. And to me it was an unlikely, I enjoyed the time together. I got to meet wonderful people, many sitting in this room. And to me, there was an unlikely event where I got elected president of the division and just was able to kind of talk about some things that I was interested in. And members of this association, members of this division, have just helped me personally and professionally. Especially this man, Dennis Kibligan, that man, Andy Horn, who happened to be in the room, but also Gary Burlingame, Gene Kine, who's in the room, Nina Brown, Rex Stockton, Maria, Rebecca, Craig Parks, Don Forsythe, and my dear friend and former Professor John Medically. This is the tribe, and I just try to tell people who are kind of in my situation that aren't in the R1, that love group, to come to the division. 65, my name, junior camp. Small groups. My first small group experience. Me in front of my cabin with my small group. I was reminded at the history thing that's the pop-up history that groups have a lot, camp has a lot to say about group psychology. I saw these pictures. It's like, yes, I remember reading this in social psych, and groups have a lot to do. I worked at camp as a counselor for 6 years. And what I learned there is I had to think on the fly. In southeastern North Carolina, this time of year, you'd have the whole afternoon planned, and a huge thunderstorm was coming up. So what are we going to do now? Think on your feet, let's do something different. You had a group of kids that were just not going to sit there and listen to you tell stories. You had to play a lot of activities. Then I joined this paramilitary organization during my childhood. You may know them as the Boy Scouts of America. Got lots of training, some of which was good, some of which was, I learned about things like hazing and bullying in the Boy Scouts, but we won't go there either. I took my first psychology class as a freshman, It was an aha moment for me. I put all my camp counseling stuff and found this book, this whole field. But growing up in a tiny town in North Carolina, I had no exposure to what psychology was in the 70s. It really spoke to me. So, in college, went to a wilderness instructor's course. So I first got to see initiatives of 76. And I got to participate in a trust wall. I got to climb a 12-foot wall. Got to do a lot of wilderness instructor stuff. And as good fortune would have it, right out of that course, I took abnormal and advanced abnormal psych at a state hospital in North Carolina and was able to go rock climbing with patients. And I got to see these patients climbing. I got to see them in their school. I got to see them in the cafeteria. I got to see them in other places. And they were different when they tied on those ropes and climbed up to where I was at the first pitch. The conversations we had were so different than conversations that I could have with them in school. It made a tremendous impact on my career. And I tell students that something happened when we were sitting there. And I've been chasing that for all my life, all my professional career. What's going on there? Big, important stuff. So I took graduate courses in Gestalt therapy. When I was an undergraduate, I was able to read about Carl Rogers, because I was in a highly behavioral school. At Davidson College, and the undergraduate program was very behavioral. So the minister, the local Presbyterian church, had a counseling class. So I got to read about Carl Rogers, learn about Gestalt therapy. When I was first teaching in high school, running an outdoor program with Appalachian State, took a class in dream work Gestalt therapy. In Georgia, I got exposed to talking about what I was doing, and my dear mentor, Warren Body, said, psychodrama, you might want to read some Marino. And I went and read Marino. George Gosda, they brought very valuable group stuff. So for me, the roots of what I'm doing kind of pull both from Milton Erickson's work in metaphor, strategic interventions, and being intentional. I finally got to see Kurt Lewin's formula play out in the work I was doing. Behavior was a function of the person and the environment. I could see environments change, and I could watch behaviors change. So this, to me, is really the roots of what I'm doing. I got hired to teach counseling and psychology at Georgia College. I got to teach some graduate courses for a few years, and I got to facilitate the Building the Challenge course, ropes course while I was there. I'm well connected within that field, especially back then. And began to see students respond to doing activities and then talking about what's going on. I had the benefit of being asked to be the consulting psychologist and do research at Project Adventure, which had a southern office in Covington, Georgia, first working with juveniles, first offenders, then first offenders, juveniles with substance use disorders, then juveniles with who were sex offenders, being able to run groups with this very reluctant, resistant to talking about things group. But we could do something. We could do an activity. They get very involved. And for all I had to say many times as a therapist was, how does this relate to what's going on? And it would be talk. They could make all these connections between what they were doing and their treatment. I brought my little piece of camp back to teaching a class in interpersonal relations with my undergraduates. And every semester we would go out and spend 2 nights, not one night, 2 nights at a cabin, because 2 nights away are exponentially not different than being able, you can fake it for one night, but 2 nights together with a group of undergraduates, this is them doing activities and talking about what was important to them. We did a simple game. It's a drinking game, but we didn't drink. We did a simple game the first night that it turned out over the 13 years I taught it to be so powerful. It's a very simple game. It's called Have You Ever? Some college students remember it as Never Have I Ever. But Have You Ever? Simple, kind of like musical chairs. We're in a circle. One person stands in the middle. They ask a question. It has to be something they've done. Have you ever done this behavior? You can reveal that by getting out of your chair and finding an empty chair. I would play, as one of my mentors would say, are we going to play above the waist or below the waist? I would let it go, because we're at a public liberal arts university, so we have license to kind of do whatever. Those students would take it to sex, drugs, rock and roll, ask all these questions. I would be surprised if you got up. We always had Las Vegas rules. You can't talk about anything that happened here when you're out in here. Consistently, when they write reflections about that whole class, they point to Friday night in that activity. They consistently say, I learned I was more alike from some people in the class that I never, ever would speak to in a normal class, because we shared some crazy, wild behaviors. I would never let them tell stories during the activity, but they could talk all night if they wanted to, as long as they asked permission. Because some of the questions they asked were some pretty heavy stuff. Ask permission, will you talk about this? And be respectful if the person says no. Powerful stuff. Here's how my contrast between just talk groups and adventure therapy groups. We move, you got immediate feedback, point performance coaching, learning through activities. Intentionally putting out activities and then talking about it and making those connections. Was lucky enough to meet some fine Canadians at an RFP put out in 2010 in Fibrosis in Calgary. They started a substance use treatment program for young adults, and they wanted to do some evaluation, and my good buddy Keith Russell and I applied for it, and they challenged us with this question: what's the added value of adventure therapy to substance use treatment? And so here we were off and running. So the challenge was trying to think about how to get at kind of what's going on in these activities that can explain sort of what's going on. I've had the luck of having a number of publications come out of this work with Keith and I, and with Dennis's help on some of this statistical analysis, really trying to move things forward about what's going on. It's the recent things have been about mindfulness and our impact that going through these programs, we call them mindfulness-based experiences. Not a mindfulness-based intervention, but the reflection in group about what happened, where you're relating to your treatment goals, that's where we're getting at what's happening. It's a pretty environment. Right now, our current stuff, the AIDS is the Adventure Therapy Experience Scale. We're in version 3.0. We've got 16 questions. We've got 4 factors: group adventure, reflection, nature, and challenge. And group adventure, along with how mindful were you of treatment, how helpful was this activity for your treatment, are pushing down OQ 45.2 scores. So here's the within-person analysis. Here's the between-person analysis. Notice that mindfulness is missing from the slide before, because we feel like what's it showing is that mindfulness is very much an individual thing and not as much about what's going on in the group. And I wish I could say this is Middle Georgia, where I live and how I spend my days each time. It's more like this, but it's quite beautiful in the springtime in the middle of Georgia, and I really appreciate the time this afternoon and the opportunity.